Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would find myself in a very advanced, futuristic sci-fi city and community. For I was not only to observe what was to take place, as oftentimes we operate from a position aside from the simulated situations, and are but witnessing from the view of the real awareness, but was to play a role in what would unfold, which is more usually the case where the real awareness is animating through an inserted body form vehicle. That attempted redirection of the simulated affairs or the gleaning of agreement from the participants is possible. In reality, the two are indivisible, for it is idea agreement that effect manifests simulated outcome, and as the deciders of our experience, as we choose the ideas that we install in our consciousness, others cannot impose on our experiential free will choices and enforce their own ideas. We have to agree to these alternative ideas that they create and present. Effectively, we can do nothing then to change anything occurring in creation. We rather have to instead encourage alternative agreement that, if successful, will yield beneficial results, awareness speaking, for all involved. Or if it is certain individual participants that through their idea creations agreed to, have dire simulated circumstances been the result, can the karmic debt, the reflective effect for such destructive life choices, be managed in such a way that the underlying idea cause of the situation we seek to alter can be removed, the abrasive individuals displaced, their consciousness and idea creations nullified? The advanced city would actually be very extensive, and its creational location would be the planet Earth in this current time era, as impressions revealed. The technology as boasted by this vast city was to the extent that it was far in excess and beyond that which the human slaves have access to, though of course those that control humanity, the reptilian dark forces, have superior technological capability and only allow certain of it to bleed into human society at any given moment, all according to their unfolding control agendas. The advanced cities' inhabitants were also humans, but as though a large group removed from the vaster proportion that populated the earth. For indeed, the city was located deep within the planet, far from public knowledge and scrutiny, though the dark forces would be aware of their existence. Jeremy has shared a number of real-side experiences regarding the inhabitants that dwell deep within the earth, that they are in possession of a technology far beyond that as available for the surface humans, and this has indeed been a fairly commonly circulated idea in alternative media circles, that of the hollow earth and the people that reside there. For indeed, most famous would be Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica, where not only would he discover land masses that hadn't been officially recorded, but would encounter the inner earth inhabitants as they would engage with him on the surface, and afford him transportation into the inner earth via their spacecraft, and where he would witness for himself the advanced cities that were their home. What seems to have occurred is as follows, that over the eons of human civilization, regardless of the nature of it, humanity has always been under the control of the dark force reptilians, an agreement that was secured from humanity's very inception, when they were genetically engineered from their original monkey forms to become the slaves of the reptilians, that although through the millennia that followed, the reptilians may not have featured as directly in humanity's affairs, more so covertly and from the shadows, this agreement extended to the reptilians has been maintained in overall human consciousness. An agreement to the power of the reptilians over humanity, which translates as the ability of the dark force controllers to at any moment exercise this agreement permission, whereby they can harm, torture, or eliminate any human, and indeed, if they so choose, do so on a vast scale. And officially we have been told that all eras of human history preceding the present moment have been of a lesser technological standing, but in reality the opposite seems to have been the case. Previous civilizations of humanity have been far more advanced than we currently are, but despite the level and extent of the prior human civilization technologies, always the underlying agreement with the reptilians' control has been maintained. And it seems that at certain points in human history has this agreement been utilized, that global resets have been exacted as instigated by the reptilian controllers, and where a reset occurs as humanity re-establishes itself, it has been of a lesser technological standing than it was previously, though certain of the structures and artifacts survive from the pre-reset eras. What seems to have occurred is that during one of these resets, where overall humanity were operating with levels of technology far in excess of what is present in the current human era, that a certain proportion of humanity received a warning heads-up that a reset was imminent, and in a bid to survive it, they would use their technologies to access the inner Earth. They would seal the passageways they had created that allowed them access, secure themselves within the Earth, and as the reset wiped out surface humanity, and humanity re-established itself in the aftermath, though now operating with far less technology, the inner Earth humans maintained their level of technological prowess, and have remained within their advanced Hollow Earth cities to this day, and are generally referred to as the Hyperboreans. For as seems to be the case, planets are not designed as the controllers would have us believe, but instead tend to have hollow interiors as a standard, whereon planets such as the Earth so exists natural environments, and even suns are present, just as would feature on the surface. I shared a real side experience a number of years ago where I would be transported with a group to the Hollow Earth via a sea vessel, and where the means of entry would be an opening of a vortex within the ocean, and now in this real side experience, this advanced human inhabited city was indeed revealed as being within the Hollow Earth. As I mentioned, I was inserted into the experience, as opposed to witnessing what was to unfold, for indeed I had a role within the Hollow Earth human society, as I was in the capacity of a highly ranked official, not unlike a mayor or a prime minister, say. This wasn't a case of assuming the guise of one of the experience participants, or viewing through the body forms of an individual involved, as can sometimes be the case, but more that this seemed to be my position and function, as though an alternative aspect or dimensional vehicle, as effected from my consciousness, operating in this position and capacity. I had called a city meeting, and vast numbers had gathered at a particular location, as a certain situation had to be addressed. As I mentioned earlier, the Dark Force controllers are aware of not only the existence of the Hollow Earth, but the humans that have survived from one of the resets that reside there to this day. Up until now, the controllers have had little interest in the affairs of the Hyperboreans, but this, it seems, was about to change. For whatever reason, the Dark Force reptilians now desired the destruction of the human inhabitants of the Hollow Earth, and were soon to execute their various plans in regards to this. The Hyperboreans, just as it had been, where the long ago reset was about to be initiated, had received word of this impending threat, and this was what the city meeting was for the purposes of: discussion in regards to what action was to be taken in response. I would be sat at a table with other officials, and standing directly behind me would be what I can best describe as my advisor, and always I would lean to his wise counsel in all matters pertaining to the safety, preservation, and perpetuation of the Hollow Earth humans. Throughout my alternative lifetime position within the Hollow Earth human community, and where I would assume my position as one of their officials, this individual, my advisor, always had been by my side, and impressions would reveal he was a real guide. That perhaps this alternative aspect of myself was unaware of this, but the guides were overseeing the safety of the Hyperboreans, as they were recognizing they had a key part to play in overall humanity's affairs that are yet to come, and a guide then had been assigned to ensure the decisions I and other officials made were those most conducive where survival of the Hollow Earth humans was concerned. As I mentioned, regardless of the nature of human civilizations, and wherever in human history it featured, the underlying agreement with the reptilians was maintained. This would include the Hyperboreans, despite their technology, and in reality then, the dark forces could very readily destroy them at any given moment. For the idea was present in the Hyperborean humans' consciousness in relation to the dark force reptilians that dictated always the potentiality that they could experience destruction at the hands of the controllers. Only should the process of awareness be undertaken that involves a facing and releasing of all ideas of consciousness, can an individual, or indeed a species, be released from such potentiality and be beyond the ability of others to harm or eradicate, as absent of the idea, and the effect cannot feature as experience. With the guide advisor ensuring my decisions were those most advantageous, I would reach a determination with the approval of the other officials that we would in fact return to the planet Earth's surface and effectively abandon the hollow Earth cities that had been the home of the Hyperboreans for so many millennia, as the dark forces intended their destruction and the genocide of all inhabitants. Our means of evacuation would be via the same mechanism by which we had entered the hollow Earth prior to the reset centuries ago, utilizing our advanced craft, and where we would exit the hollow Earth through the open passageways that led to the surface. Throughout this experience, not only had the guide been present as my advisor, but always standing in the scene would be a trio of women. These 3 women were dressed in white, and their presence went unnoticed by all other experienced participants, other than myself, and the guide also, I would assume. I have shared real-side experiences previously and years ago, where on occasion 3 women would be featuring, though unrealized by any other individual present, and on recounting this anomaly, DUANE would surmise that they represented the all-ears. And here they would be again, simply standing there in white, and impressions would determine that nothing exuded from them other than they just being. No attitudes, intents or ideas, just like the sun shining, so perhaps indeed they were representative of the everything is, absent of anything created and held to. The hollow Earth people were humans, as I mentioned, but also operating within their cities, and accepted among them would be a number of what I may describe as aquatic people. They would be bipedal, 2-legged, but their body form design would include external epidermal ridges, fin-like additions, with a skin that was greenish and scaled, and their faces, although humanoid, had slight design differences that even were they fully clothed, and only their heads visible, it would be apparent that they were not human. They were sea-based body forms, similar to the mermaids, though of their own unique species, appearance-wise reminding me a little of the aquatic character in the movie Hellboy called Abe Sapien, or the sea being featuring in the film the shape of water, accepted within the human Hollow Earth societies, but not strictly a part of it. These aquatic beings had a certain attitude about them, a rather lofty, superior quality, but regardless, they were not a species inclined to be destructive. Interestingly, in the real side experience I shared years ago that I made mention of, where I and a group were transported into the hollow earth through a sea vortex opening, it was a similar in appearance and very likely of the same species aquatic being that facilitated our safer passage, as he boasted extraordinary creational manipulative ability, and where he would create the very vortex opening and part the waters by sheer force of will. With our evacuation decided, there would be the additional variable whereby we only had certain time windows where such evacuations could take place, for whatever reason this may have been, as the explanation for this detail was never revealed, and so preparations were made well in advance of the next window of evacuation opportunity, as all the inhabitants would gather whatever was deemed essential for the journey, and everything considered precious, for anything left behind would be destroyed with the cities when the dark forces launched their assault. There would be a point in the experience whereas the scenes skipped, there were but a few hours prior to departure, the evacuation ships had been readied, all essentials secured, and the inhabitants set to board the craft. However, it seemed word had reached the dark forces regarding our intended evacuation, and they had deployed what appearance-wise seemed to be avian body forms, but were more along the lines of mechanicals, robotic flying machines resembling birds. These mechanical birds had accessed the hollow earth as a vast swarm, and I'm uncertain if they were simply programmed machines designed to carry out their actions, or that they were mechanical forms as just another vehicle for awareness to animate through. Either way, they would target all hollow earth humans, secure them with a mechanized beak and claw, for they were rather large mechanical birds, and transport the struggling, hapless, seized humans into the sky and to some other location. Nothing was revealed as to their destination or fate, if they were taken to the earth's surface, or maybe another position within the hollow earth, but presumably they either would be imprisoned or executed ultimately. And so the frightened humans that hadn't been snagged by the mechanicals would secure themselves within the buildings of the city. I would be among them, my guide adviser as ever by my side, and we would be discussing our best course of action, as we had a precious little time by which we could reach our ships before we missed the window, and then would have to wait for the next. And with such a delay, the mechanical birds wouldn't be our only problem, very likely just the first wave of the dark forces attack, and as they realized we were set on evacuation, the timetable for the destruction of the hollow earth cities would be moved forward. There the experience would end, with the various frightened hollow earth city dwellers remaining within the buildings, the mechanized flock of birds swooping through the streets seeking targets, but seemingly disinclined to attempt to access or break into the structures the humans were hiding within. Although I would be afforded a simultaneous view of the ships of the Hyperboreans successfully evacuating, as though a future moment where they would indeed manage to evacuate those that the mechanicals hadn't seized, that they had evaded then complete genocide as intended by the controllers. They would in fact exit through an opening at the bottom of an ocean, ascend through the waters. Their ships then would emerge and be floating on the surface. Their craft had the general appearance of traditional saucer-shaped UFOs. What their next course of action would be wasn't revealed, and it will be interesting to see what comes of this and any subsequent real side updates in regards to the Hollow Earth Hyperboreans I receive.